If you're ready to experience more peace and joy in your life, if you want to feel more comfortable in your own skin, and if you're ready to discover and expand on your energetic gifts and personal power, you're in the right place. So here's your host, Kelle Sparta.
Welcome back to Spirit Guides. I'm your host, Kelle Sparta, transformational shaman, spiritual coach, spiritual business coach. I'm here as always on Mondays with my friend Joshua Radewan, a spiritual coach who specializes in working with the paranormal and taking all the icks off that they get on them. And the paranormal investigators, not paranormal people, although he would do that too. Anyway, the topic today is, can I leave my warding to Beaver? And so, if you know, right? So this is the old folks having a laugh for those of you who are too young, although Josh really is too young to remember this, but he came up with this title. So Leave It to Beaver was a TV show in the 50s, and the father's name was Ward, which is why this is funny. And if I had to explain it, it's probably not funny, but it was funny, all right? And so let's talk about what a ward is first. So a ward is a protection on your house. It is a semi-permanent protection on your house or your office, so on a physical location, okay? And when I say semi-permanent, I mean it is not a circle, okay? So I'm going to define the difference. A circle is something that you put up for a short period of time to do a specific working, and then you take it back down. A ward is something that is a protection on a space that is meant to be permanent until it's not. Right? And so when I say permanent until it's not, so you don't leave your ward up on a house that you no longer live in, right? That sort of thing, unless you still own it. If you still own it and you're renting it, you can do that, but you should do it with the permission of the people who are renting it from you, right? Because you're impacting their living space. You can put a protection on the physical house itself without impacting the tenants. If you choose to do that, that's a possibility. You can just protect the structure and make sure that it's safe. So an example of this, we've got so many good examples, right? An example of this is you can put up a protection on a physical property, and one of my students did that, and she had 2 huge pine trees fall on her house. 2. And she lost 2 shingles, and that was it, because she had really good ward on the house, right? And one of my other students was doing, she lives in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. She was one of the co-hosts of Spirit Sherpa. And she, and Hurricane Ida came through, and it was due to go directly over her house. And I said, okay, she called me up. She's like, what do I do? And I'm like, okay, here's how we're going to modify your wards to slow the winds. And so we made her wards floppy, right? And we made them loose and wavy so that as the winds hit, it would slow the winds down coming through the property. And I said, and then you're going to talk to the hurricane and you're going to ask it to miss you. And she's like, what? I said, yeah, just go talk to the hurricane and say, hey, I'm here. Would you miss me, please? And she did. And at the last second, against every single model all of the meteorologists had, the hurricane turned hard at the last second and missed her by 20 miles. The eye of the storm was supposed to go right over her, and it missed her by 20 miles. So she didn't get the brunt of the worst of it. And she had a kiddie pool in the back of an open slatted trailer, and it was empty. And the kiddie pool was still there when the hurricane went by and had not moved. And she had a few, down tree, lighter branches and, some leaves and stuff, but no damage. She had one tree fall down at the very edge of the property, which was right where the ward was doing the floppy thing. So that wasn't terribly surprising. But all of her neighbors had massive damage, and they came over and were like, what happened? How did you not have damage? And she's like, well, let me tell you about my wards, right? So the wards are also good for things like at my house. I had a ward up, and I had a dream in the middle of the night. The trees were falling in the road in front of me, and I woke up, and a tree in our backyard had fallen just far enough to miss. It was coming up from the roots, so it hadn't fallen all the way down yet. It was just over the fence and hadn't taken out the fence yet, but it was a massive tree. It was a 60-foot tree. and it was taking up a quarter of our backyard with all the branches and stuff that were overhanging. And so I was like, that was the ward trying to tell me the tree is falling, the tree is falling. And so, and it can also impact people, right? So when you have a good ward up, you can keep people who might do bad things to your house or to you away. We had a guy who was a problem child who would wander up and down our street in our last house, and it was COVID. And Jeff was in the side yard, my husband, and the guy started talking to him, and Jeff was like 15, 20 feet away, and he's being polite and answering, but he's busy doing stuff. And the guy starts to, I'm looking out the window, and the guy starts to walk into the yard, and he rocks back. And I was like, oh, like, you hit my ward and you don't have good intentions, because otherwise you'd be able to walk across that. And so then he tries to get Jeff to invite him onto the property. And he says, hey, man, do you want to shake my hand? And Jeff is like, it's COVID, dude. I do not want to shake your hand. I'm like, no, I don't want to. I don't want to even come within 6 feet of you. You're not wearing a mask. I'm not wearing a mask. What? No. And so the guy could not get on our property. He tried a couple more times to step on, and he kept rocking back off, right? So that's the other reason why you do this. And if you've got people coming into your home, you don't want them bringing crap into your home. It's like asking people to take their shoes off at the door, right? You don't want them to track all the dirt of the world into your house. Well, you also don't want them to track all the energetic dirt of the world into your house. And so that's the other reason why you ward your house, right? Now, you can look online and you will find a lot of weird stuff around warding, okay? So, the first thing I'm trying to do is make you aware that you should have a protection on your home. If you are doing any work in the astral, any psychic work, any sort of waking up to the spiritual world work, you are becoming brighter on the astral, and therefore things that are positive and negative will be attracted to you. And you need a safe space in which to live and to work and to sleep. And that safe space should be your warded property, right? Now, we've had a message from a listener. Josh, do you remember her name? Can you tell me her name? Can you look that up?
I can absolutely look that up.
Okay. We've had a message from a listener, and I've talked about this topic on Spirit Sherpa before. And, she was like, well, why don't you just tell us how to do it on the podcast? And I'm like, okay, here's the deal. I have a class on this, and it is included in the Welcome to the Woo program. Now, the reason I don't just give this information away, okay, is because if you screw it up, you don't have anybody to help you fix it. And I can give all the instructions that I want, and I can give them in a way that it works for 99% of the people, and that 1% person is not going to get it right. And you may not even realize that you screwed it up. You just don't realize what's going on, right? So, Josh, this is where you get to tell your story.
Which one?
The stagnant one is the one I was thinking, but go ahead.
Oh yeah, so one of the things that I had done, being someone who was under magical attack at different times, demonic attack, early in my awakening journey, I was a little overzealous with the strength in which of the wards I was creating. So I didn't make my wards breathable. Something very simple, right? Like I did not allow energy to come in at all. So what happened is I created a giant stagnant box. Imagine someone farting in an elevator, right? It just I mean, that's what it was. I'm just stuck in this terrible stagnant energy, and I could not figure out why I couldn't get out. And it didn't just affect me; it affected everybody I lived with. Right? It took me a couple months to put this together. And for the information, it is Elizabeth Andrews who sent this in. So thank you, Elizabeth.
Elizabeth sent us. Oh my God, she sent us so many ideas. Thank you so much. You're the bomb.com girlfriend. So
the goat.
You're the goat. Yes. So So the reason why I haven't put this out as a gift like I do with a lot of the other stuff on here is because it is something that that you really need somebody to be helping you check, right? You need somebody to be checking in on you and making sure that the energetics are working properly. There's a lot of ways in which people can misconstrue the instructions, and then they say, oh, well, I did this, and I'm like, oh, don't do that, right? And lots of ways in which it just, there are modifications and changes that people make that are fine, but people have a lot of questions, a lot of things that are specific to their home, a lot of things that are specific to them, and, a lot of things that are specific to their living situation and the ethics and blah, 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 blah. So there's so many different pieces and parts. Josh and I had this conversation the other day where I thought about it. I was like, well, maybe I could just make this available individually. And I was like, but I can't. Not ethically, right? Because I don't want people left hanging in the wind with whatever the consequences of their choices are and having no way to find out more about how to fix it or whatever. And a lot of times they don't even know that they need to fix it. And so, you can live with that for months and years and have it impacting your life in a negative way. And it's like you don't even realize that that's what it was, right? So, some of this stuff I can give away to you and tell you how to do it because it is something you can do on your own. And some of this stuff really needs supervision. And I don't like to hand out the things that need supervision for free because when I do that, then you don't get support, right? And so it's not me gatekeeping, it's me keeping you safe. And there's the difference. So, you can find some basics. And I will give you a simple one that you can do on your own that is generally benign and hard to screw up, okay? But you can still screw this up, so just pay attention very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. You need no one to be home when you do this. No one, not even your pets. Okay, nobody is home in the house when you do this. I want to be clear. You're going to gather up all the rage that you have in your body, and you're going to shove it out of your body to the edges of your house. And do this with the house, not with the property line, because you don't want to be doing, you need a physical structure to hold this, okay? So you shove it out to the edges of your house. Include the ceilings and the floors, okay? All the way up to your roof, all the way down to your basement floor, all right? Most people think about these things and they only think about the four walls. And it's like, no, you need a top and a bottom or else it's not a protection, right? Okay, and you're going to shove your aura and your anger all the way out to the edges of everything, and you're going to go, mine! You're just going to say, mine! It's just a angry claiming, right? And then you're going to wait a second for that to infuse the edges of your building, and then you're going to pull your energy back. Hear me, pull your energy back. This is how you fuck this one up. If you leave your energy there, you're going to get the spiritual bends. Pull your energy back, okay? Pull your energy back and leave the ward in place. Leave the mine in place. But separate yourself from the ward, okay? That is a very simple ward that you can do, and it mostly will not be a problem, okay? So that is your only instruction that you're going to get from me on this. There are many, many different aspects to wards, including, how to keep other people from bringing stuff into your house, how to account for other people who live in your house, how to account for pets, all of the things, right? And, holding the house versus holding the property line and what energies do you allow in and what energies do you not, and all of the different pieces, right? So, and then tuning the wards to be protective against different things. You can tune a ward to be protective against angst, general angst and anxiety. I did that for about a year and a half before we moved. It was a losing battle, to be fair, because the energy of the U.S. was so filled with it that it was very difficult to filter it out. Thinking about it now, I was really tired when I was trying to do it. But thinking about it now, I probably would have powered it differently to make it work better, and then it would have been fine. But I didn't do that at the time because I was too overwhelmed to do so. But your ward is limited only by your imagination. And when you set your protections on your space, and which you should do, you can choose what energy to fill the space with too now, because you have a contained space, right? So that's the other piece that you can do when you have a ward in place, is to choose a container for it. What do you want to live in? What do you want to marinate in, right? And you can modify that as time goes on. I will tell you the single most important piece about a ward is to believe it works. And to stop checking it every 30 seconds, right? Every time you check it, you're doubting that it works. So you can tie something to the ward that some physical thing to the ward that will fall down or something if the ward stops working. We used to have a pentacle on our back door at our house, and when the wards would fall, the pentacle would fall off the wall, and we'd be like, "Oh, time to reset the ward," right? But and this can be a group working as well if you live with other people, because that was the magical house that we lived in, where all the people were magical, and so we all jointly wove the ward together and stuff like that. But there's lots of pieces and parts to this. I mean, I could do probably a 2-day. I could probably do a weekend workshop on warding, just on warding, and all the intricacies of it. And and I could do another one on warding commercial spaces too. So I did a ward on my retail space when we opened our retail store, and the local kleptomaniac walked through the store, and before we had anything in it, and she walked in and she's like, "What's this going to be?" And I'm like, "It's going to be this." And she was like, "I'll never come in here. I'll never come in here." Over and over and over again. She just said that. And I was like, that was so weird. I was not going to disabuse her of that notion. I was like, yeah, you can keep that idea. And then I found out later she was a local kleptomaniac. And I was like, oh, well, that's a good thing my words are working, right? So, and we had $12 worth of loss in a retail store where a bunch of teenagers were coming through in a poor neighborhood in 18 months of being open, $12 worth of loss. And we were certain that we had just given that away and forgotten to write it down. So all of these things can be done with wards, but you have to know what you're doing. And they are, a complex process. And, there's a lot of different things that you can do, but you also have to think about a lot of different layers, because there are also things like portals. If you have a portal in your space, you're going to have to account for that with the ward, right? Ideally, you would close the portal. That would be step number 1, is to close the portal. Yeah. No bus stops in your house. And then, if you've got running water running underneath the house, or if you've got a ley line running through the house, positive or negative, there's lots of different things that you have to account for with wards. And so, these are all things that have to be taken into account as you're doing the work. So, with that said, I will, I'm going to, do you have anything else you want to say about this, Josh?
No, I would take it too far, and I want to leave it. You know me, I'll give them too much, and just learn from my personal experience that you definitely want somebody who knows what they're doing to walk you through these processes, because the more in depth you get with it, the more things can go wrong. And language is very important in this process, and the understanding of it is so important. This is why Kelly corrects me all the time.
And even though I am an expert in this, I can still screw stuff up, right? I warded my house, and I did not allow the fairies onto the land because I didn't think to, and therefore nothing grew. I was like, planted this massive garden, nothing grew, right? Oh, there were no fairies on the land to grow the plants. Oh, crap. Okay. So, I had to let the fairies back in, and then, they were a little cranky with me, so I had minimal growing the next year because they were cranky because they'd been excluded from the land, and they didn't, I didn't do milk and honey often enough to make them happy. So
they like peppermint schnapps too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So,
oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So there's all sorts of ways that things can go awry, even if you know what you're doing. So that's the reason why we haven't done a warding instructional on the podcast, but it is also why it's one of the first things that you learn in the Welcome to the Woo program, because you really need to have protection on your space. And so we work with you on how to manage your energy, how to clear your energy, how to protect your house, how to protect yourself. We do a lot of energetic work in this program because you should be doing these things as a base understanding, as a base foundation. You should know how to work with your own energy and protect your own energy in order to be able to operate in this world. And so that's one of the very first things that you learn in the Welcome to the Woo program. So, all right, with that said, please share this with anybody you can think of who needs to know that they need to protect their home. And especially if you're seeing people in your home for healing work, I'm talking to the Reiki people out there, if you are bringing people into your house to do Reiki work, you need a ward on your home. You need to be clearing your space when you're done. You need to have things in place because that is just good energetic hygiene. Okay? So please share this with somebody that you know who is doing energy work, and so that they understand that this is something that's possible, because Reiki doesn't teach you this, and so they don't know. Okay? And like, subscribe, and share. And remember that what you focus on is what you create, and what you know. I said that wrong. What you focus on is what expands. What you intend is what you create. So choose wisely. That's it. I knew I'd get it. All right. Have a good one, guys.
So that's it for today's episode of Spirit Guides Podcast. Head on over to iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen and subscribe to the show. Every week, one lucky listener who subscribes and posts a review on iTunes will be entered into a drawing for a $10,000 value grand prize and a private reading with Kelle Sparta herself. Be sure to head on over to spiritguidespodcast.com and pick up a free copy of Kelle's gift and join us on the next episode.